Okay, students, I have gotten some requests about 9.6, number 16 on your homework assignment. If you have not done number 16, try to attempt to do it, and then you can check your answers on here. I did get a request for number 17, however, I am going to do part of 16. You can look in your textbook, example 3 or 4. I know on my notes, it's example 3 on the video. Okay, so it is asking you to solve the right triangle. Round your decimal answers to the nearest tenth. Remember, anytime it's asking you to solve for the right triangle, I've highlighted some side lanes and some angles that we need to solve for. So we do need to solve for HJ. Now you can call it HJ. The online textbook calls it HJ. You can call it little g if you want. It really doesn't matter, but we're solving for this side length. Now, it is a right triangle. I am given 16 and 14. I'm just missing one side length. So you can use Pythagorean theorem. And Pythagorean theorem says leg squared plus leg squared equals height squared. And I know my height is 16, so I know it's going to equal 16 squared. And if you want, you can call this little g or whatever you want. So g squared plus 14 squared equals 16 squared. So I'm solving for g, or you can call this hj, and you can square it. It really doesn't matter. Okay, but we are solving for a variable. 14 squared, I'm simply plugging this in, or maybe you know it, it's 196. 16 squared, sorry, my son. V3, turn it down, please. 16 squared is 256. And now we're trying to solve for g. So let's go ahead and subtract 256. 196 from 256. And then you know the drill, you take the square root. Now, square root of 60, I'm going to plug that into my calculator. And remember, in the directions, it did ask you to round the decimal answers to the nearest tenth. So it's 7.74, so it's going to be approximately 7.7. Now, if you called it, I think the textbook calls it HJ, then it would be approximately 7.7. Okay. Now, just one moment. Okay, now that's the side length. Remember I told you, if you're given 2 sides, in this case we're given 3 sides, but we found HJ. But I was originally given 2 sides and is asking to find these angle measurements. To find angle measurements, we are going to use the inverse trig functions, okay? Inverse trig functions. So what that means is, let's say I want to find my reference angle is angle G. And I know I have HJ, I solved it, but I want to use the numbers that were originally given to me. Then what you would do is you would say, okay, I have a reference angle, angle G. What does 16 represent? Well, 16 represents the height. And 14, it's not opposite, because opposite would be HJ. It's actually adjacent. So you're asking yourself, what trig function from SOHCAHTOA has adjacent and height in it? Adjacent and height is cosine. So what we're going to do is, we're not going to use cosine adjacent over height. We're trying to find the angle measurement. So you have to use the inverse trig, trig function. So it would look like this. the measure of angle G is equal to, and we said cosine, the inverse of cosine 14 over 16. Remember, that is a number. What is it? It's actually a degree. So the inverse cosine 14 divided by 16. Again, I'm looking at this, I'm rounding to the nearest tenth. This 5 makes this a 0. That brings it up to 29. So the measure of angle G is 29 degrees. Okay, so we do some highlighting here. Now, I've already given you 2 answers. I'm hoping that you guys will find the measure of angle J. Now that we're given the measure of angle G, you have 29 degrees here. You have a 90-degree angle here. All you have to do is subtract this number from 90, and that will give you the measure of angle J. Okay, so I hope this helps, students. Again, try to do it on your own, check your answers, and then enter it into your homework assignment on Big Ideas Online. Thank you.